Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I am a New Yorker and mother of two. I've been working to help enterprises build the future of work since about 2016. I started my career as a corporate attorney in big law, representing institutional lenders in multi-billion dollar real estate transactions. So somebody who was really energized by putting together complex transactions and moving fast. But after I had kids, which I did younger than many people in New York and earlier in my career than many people in big law, I felt like there was a real wasted opportunity in the way that we approached work. I was always at my desk at 4 o'clock in the morning, waiting for documents to come in. I wouldn't see my son for days during his waking hours. And so I thought there needed to be a better way. And I ended up leaving big law, founding a startup that was ultimately about data and analytics to help the Fortune 500 understand and implement flexibility in remote work. That company was acquired in January 2020. And I was like, I'm not sure this is going to happen. I couldn't see where there would be an economic event big enough to convince the entrenched leadership to give this a real shot, beyond the champions that were deeply and for sure part of the environment then. I ended up starting at Deloitte in February 2020. And that I sort of thought like, hey, I've done law, I've done entrepreneurship. Now let me go get a, enterprise view of business. And within 3 weeks, I, was in the middle of helping all of the biggest companies transition to work from home orders. Within a year, I was recruited over to Facebook to be the first head of remote work, now Meta, and kind of built all of the talent policies and approaches and operations to support remote working. And then after about a year there, I was recruited to Atlassian, where I'm now the head of Team Anywhere, which is our business strategy to shift the company to distributed first. I oversee our offices, our workplace experience team, a research team, a strategy and operations team. So it's transformational in nature, but I also still oversee kind of traditional corporate verticals like real estate.
It's pretty incredible. And I would say even eye-opening, because unfortunately the narrative outside is if you want to be a good company, you can give work from home, but it might not be best for your business. Or if you care more about your business than about your people, then bring everybody home. And you saying that it's something that is like, no, actually it's best for the business.
Yeah, absolutely. From a business perspective, for instance, since we started Team Anywhere in India, our female representation in India has doubled. That's crazy. What a huge lever to drive impactful change.
Do you have some metrics you could share with us that you look at?
One of those is productivity. So we have no indication that productivity is going down. What we do is we look at our work pattern data in our product tool set. So we look at kind of when are people logging on, what are people logging off, what are the different peaks of productivity. And we see that we have a longer day with different peaks of productivity that incorporate a more fluid and flexible workday, which we believe yields both high performance and sustainability for the individual. And areas like that where we're really digging in and figuring out how do we know this is working for us? And I think all signs point to yes.
I love what you said, because when I used to design offices before the pandemic, we would look at peak utilization of the office.
Yeah.
And there will be the 11 a.m. and the 3 p.m. This is when everybody wanted a conference room, either because they were meeting with teams, or they wanted to brainstorm, or they needed like some quietness to really get shit done.
Yeah.
And I love that you look at this beyond the walls of the office. What are the times where people have this peak of activities?
Right.
And I'm wondering if you share this to employees so they are aware that maybe at 11, everybody will be on Slack, and so they can Slack each other. Whereas maybe at noon, it's not the time where people are going to respond so quickly.
So we have something called the Team Anywhere Lab, which is a group of PhDs led by Molly Sands, my direct report, who's a behavioral scientist, in partnership with Jesse Wisdom, who leads our People Insights team. And we are researching all kinds of issues and then sharing what we're learning. Recently, we learned that our team gathering program, which is where we have teams come together from across the globe into our offices for 3 to 5 business days, that drives team connection by about 30%. And that growth and connection lasts for 4 to 5 months. So that suggests that we need to bring people together about 3 times a year. Conversely, we looked at office attendance and how office attendance drives connection, and it has no correlation or impact. So this shows us that we don't need the office to support our connection strategy. The office is still a great place to be, and a lot of people choose to go there every day. But if we want to build the right model for a distributed world, we've got to really figure out what works and then scale that.
Does that mean that your offices are big enough to host everyone when you meet 3 times a year?
That's a great question. Our offices are spread out across the globe. We have 11 different offices, and we're actually building a huge new headquarters in Sydney as part of a new tech district, which is very exciting and market leading. And so, teams meet wherever it's convenient. But what we're doing is we're looking at the characteristics of an office and continuing to build out changes. So for instance, in our New York office, we don't have as many people at Atlassian in New York as we do on the West Coast, because the West Coast and time zone overlaps with Sydney quite effectively, whereas New York can be a little bit more difficult. So we found that 50% of all visitors to New York are actually coming from out of town for offsites. And that led us to make a capital improvement, to our lease to design for intentional togetherness gatherings. And that, I think, is a really cool way of continuing to push the envelope on what our offices look like.
You don't know how you, from a workplace designer, how happy I am to hear you say that.
What we're trying to figure out is, what does focus look like? And that comes from user interviews, observational studies, looking at the rates of booking of different conference rooms and how things are used. But it's hard to come up with an answer. We don't exactly know.
What I can share with you is the result of our own experiment with return to office. And a data that is not surprising is that people said when we implemented return to office experiment, we asked people if they could come 3 days a week, and we gave those days.
Right.
People in the office who used to come before that encouragement, they say, I have less time for and disrupt work. I have less opportunity to have work that is not being disrupted by other people. No surprise. Obviously, more people, you are being disrupted. What is interesting is that some people started to rearrange their schedule to come on days where there's few people to do their undisrupted work. For me, again, when I looked at it, I was like, but it's a natural rhythm that human beings we've adapted. I'm not going to go to a club at night to do a meditation. There's going to be loud music and a lot of people. And I'm not going to go to a library with a friend to chit chat and catch up on life. So as human beings, we've learned, if we have the data, the information on what's going to be in that space, then I can decide, is it the best environment for me to do a specific activity or not?
It's one of the things that we're really studying right now. We have a hypothesis, as I'm sure many do, that having an intentional design to the way we spend our time is one of the big shifts that needs to happen in this new phase of work. I think we, especially through the pandemic, got used to the idea of our calendar dictating our time, and really our priorities need to dictate our time.
How do you teach people internally to tell other people with compassion that this meeting shouldn't exist or should be canceled?
Whenever I pull people together, I don't want to talk about the work to be done. I want to actually do the work so that we can leave having accomplished something or driving momentum to an area of focus or output. What do you think?
I love what you shared, and I think it was the best way to end that episode, because a lot of the burnout and anxiety from work come from that lack of sense of accomplishment, because we are back-to-back meetings, or we feel we're running between things and we're not feeling we've accomplished or created anything.
Right.
That's powerful.
I love that. Thank you for hosting me. It's long overdue, and I'm so happy that we were able to connect.